saw an interview today with Turki Al-Sheikh, who is the man that's in charge of throwing all these boxing events in Saudi Arabia. And I think that a lot of people think that these events is a very short-term move, right? Where guys just going to cash out and these events are going to come and then they're going to go and they're going to be gone in boxing, because maybe we've seen that, right? Is this more like Triller-esque, right? Is that this is going to be? Someone comes new to boxing, throws all this money at it, realizes it's not going to go anywhere, and goes the other way, right? Realizes they don't know the business good enough and goes the other way. Well, after this interview, I do not think this is a short-term play. And after them introducing a bout earlier this week, it seems like this is an attempt to taking over boxing in a complete way, like a complete takeover. And I guess what their plan is to take it over and run it like the UFC, where they have the best find the best over and over again. There's no delays, just get all the matchups you want. You don't have to wait on it. They just have these events. Now, they would all happen in Saudi Arabia, apparently, and that's the part that it all sounds good until you think of that part, because I don't know in the US market, if you're getting all the big fights and they're not happening here, and you're not building fandoms here, right? You're not building fans from people's hometown that they could get behind, and they have the events there and it builds out these huge crowds like you see with Tank Davis, right? Or you see the Canelo comes and he fights in Vegas and it's a huge event, right? He fights in Texas, it's a huge event. Spence, even Omaha with Terrence Crawford, right? Those things are important because they build lifelong fans, right? And then you have interests of people that you have families watch it, right? And then kids grow up and then they want to box, and that develops talent because you got familiarity. Now, I understand that in Saudi Arabia, they're going to pay a lot of money. So you would say, well, if David Haney and Tank go fight over there, right, they can get paid a lot of money and a lot of people watch it. What does it matter, right? Then the sport will still be in a good spot. But not really, because soccer is one of the biggest sports in the world and it makes some of the most money in the world. And no one in the US plays soccer. Now, it's growing, sure. We're getting a little more familiar, but we're not getting our best athletes at it. It's because we're not familiar with it. And if people don't play it, or people don't watch it, or they're not going to the events, they're not going to put their kids in it, because it's not, familiarity is what leads to these things. So I think we will lose talent. And I'm curious the long-term play in the US and in the UK, if they're not getting the fights and they're all happening in Saudi Arabia, which people here cannot attend, right? Or people are not going to go regularly. It does have me worrying long-term what's going on. But can they take over boxing? And I think that right there is the part that people have to realize is very possible. Because they are the only promotion or only network or money, whatever, that doesn't care about turning a profit. They're using boxing as an advertisement. So when you buy a commercial, right, you buy a commercial to show your product. But you're not planning on making money off that commercial. You're planning on making money off the product that you are advertising. Everyone else, when they throw a fight, is planning on making money. That boxing is their product. Boxing is not their product. It's the commercial. It's the advertisement for Saudi Arabia. It's to change the image of how you look at Saudi Arabia. It's to say, hey, this is an event town. This is an event country. You got to come here, visit, spend your money, because these are where events happen. We're like Vegas. We're like that. We're welcoming. We are an attraction. Now, they're willing to burn money that way. These other places have to throw fights that make money. Now, you have to understand that boxing is very cheap, as far as it's very affordable. Like, a lot of the events don't even make money. They barely make money. These promotions are not giant conglomerates. They're not the NFL. They're not the NBA. And you see that when someone starts throwing money out, that all these guys start going over there, right? You see Hearn there. You see Queensberry there. You see Bob Arum there. And they're all talking Saudi Arabia. And they're all not even talking pay-per-views anymore. They're just talking about getting their fights in Saudi Arabia. You've seen Bob Arum bring it up, that he would like to fight Shakur versus Tank as long as it happens in Saudi Arabia. You see Devin Haney talking about, yeah, he'll fight Tank in Saudi Arabia. You see Eddie Hearn talking about all his big fights in Saudi Arabia. Because this is guaranteed money. There's no risk. They know what they're going to get paid. And all of these networks have had trouble building pay-per-view stars and selling pay-per-views. Now, this leads us to people talking about Al Heyman at PBC. And this led to a conversation about Tank versus Haney. Why wouldn't Tank go to Saudi Arabia to fight? Well, the truth is because Tank doesn't have to go to Saudi Arabia to fight. Because he makes what he'll make there, he can make here, and probably more. But the truth is that that's not the case for everyone. And if this is a truly an attempt at taking over the whole sport, which they can easily buy the media, which they could easily buy all the sanctioning bodies out. They could probably buy most of these promotions out. And let's say that PBC is the only one that could really battle with them, right? Because they're the only ones that are successful at throwing pay-per-view events. Well, that's fine, right? For now, for the guys you have now. But let's say you have all this fresh new crop of prospects coming out. And Saudi Arabia decides to strangle the market as far as talent. And they overpay for all the young talent. So now you have stars now that you have, right? And you have a built-in market for them. You have a built-in pay-per-view system for them. But if all the young guys take their early money, right out the gate, to go to Saudi Arabia, well, then they can stop you from your talent flow from coming in. This sport was always easy to take over. It was always a sport where if you just someone with a lot of money came in and said, I want it all, they could. And I think you're going to see, it's an interesting moment with PBC getting this Amazon deal. And Saudi Arabia on this other side, where everybody's going to them for their big fights now. And you're going to see can this PBC still hold this U.S. market? Can they still build fighters through this system that is tried and true, but don't have a lot of dates as of right now? Now, if they sign with another network, then that's fantastic. That's what they need. That's what I'm hoping for. They sign one more network so they get more dates, but they don't have a lot of dates. So that means it doesn't have a lot of room to build a lot of talent or keep a lot of talent consistently. I mean, we already see Ray Vargas on a Saudi Arabia card, who was supposed to be fighting Brandon Figueroa on a PBC card. That's been rumored for a long time. And if Saudi Arabia really starts throwing events every month and starts paying these fighters money that they can't get anywhere else because the lack of the stars are not built everywhere, pay-per-view stars are not commonplace, and they're getting money that they wouldn't get anywhere else. And they're going there and they take away the whole talent pool and they have it all funneled there because they have every other promoter basically in on it. How long can a U.S. promoter survive? I think they could battle them out right now, but long term, the sport is viable. It's, I want to see all the fights that they're bringing up. I get that part. I get the attraction of it. I get that they're going to give you fights that we never thought were possible, right? Or these fights that no one was willing to pay for, but we knew were great fights and we wanted to see. And if he's going to give you consistently good fights, I mean, as a boxing fan, it's really hard to complain about that. But I do know that the sport, which had its biggest stars come from the U.S., is going to suffer if all the events are in Saudi Arabia. And if we don't build grassroots here in the U.S., you don't build markets for people out of their hometowns they could get behind, right? They could believe in, and they can go to these events, and you could feel the presence of being at a bigger fight. I think you're going to lose talent. And I think people are going to, you think it's a niche sport before, I think it'll really, really, really be disconnected. I'm very curious, but I do think that boxing could be bought. I do think that Saudi Arabia is not Triller. I think this is a long-term play, and I think it's an aggressive play. And I do see the possibility of it being taken over